I made this quilt back in February 2025. In fact, it was the last project that I made when I was living in London in my lovely little flat in Pimlico. This video isn't really a tutorial, but you should be able to work out how to make your own quilt. It's a very, very simple pattern. Making this quilt gave me a real sense of self-actualization. It reconnected me with my brain after having a baby, and it was really lovely to use up so many of these fabrics that had been sitting in my stash for such a long time. I hope you enjoyed this project video. Back in October, I had a baby, and then I lost my brain. In December, I failed the JLPT. In January, I failed my driving test. So by the time February rolled around, I needed to do a project and get some self-actualization before I withered away and died. The result of that project is this quilt, which I finished over the course of 6 days while being the sole carer for a 4-month-old baby. It was my first ever quilt as you go project, and I pretty much made it up as I went along. But I was really happy with the result, and I'm told the recipient absolutely loved it. So I hope you'll love it too. Here's the story of how I hacked out a quilt while still suffering from baby brain. I've had this quilt book for years and only ever made one quilt out of it, but I knew there was a design that would work great for this. It's the round peg square hole. And it's just a simple background of pieced squares with appliqued circles on top. I knew this would show off the designs of my fabrics really well. The size of my finished quilt was set simply by the size of a piece of batting that I had left over lying around. I've got some really cute fabrics for this project, and some of them are real stash busters. This one I got from the Knitting and Stitching show in 2011, I think it was, maybe even 2010. Unicorns, Easter eggs. This one was from a shop in Paris. I've got a couple more from that shop. It's called Petit Pain. I made a dress out of one of their prints, and I ended up not liking the dress, so I'm going to chop that up and it can be part of it. Bunnies from Japan. Some more bunnies. Again, this one I've had about 10 years. Got some cute bicycles. I thought the grey might help balance things out, and the reason there's grey included is I've got this really cute one with little bunnies on it, and some of these are grey bunnies, so you can see all the colours coming through, the pinks, the yellows, the grey. Some grey hearts here, another unicorn one with grey on, and another teal unicorn. So my first step is going to be choosing my feature fabrics, the ones that are going to be in the circles, and then I will press my feature fabrics and cut out those 12 circles so that I know I've got those circles ready to go and don't accidentally cut too many squares out of my feature fabrics. Worked out my design on paper and settled on 7.5 inch squares. So 6 of them in a row would give me a finished dimension of approximately 42 inches. And this way I could see how many circles I needed too. Everything had to be really simple because my brain just wasn't engaging at all. In fact, if you look at the paper, you can see that I write that 6 times 8 is 46 instead of 48. I made some paper circles by drawing around some household objects so I could have a play around and see which one I felt worked best in the context of the quilt. The winner was a kitchen cork circle, the kind that you use to protect your work surfaces from hot pans. And I do apologise if the colours look a little bit muddy on my camera. It's the reality of working during the English winter with these grey skies. You don't get a lot of great natural light indoors. Here are my 12 feature circles that are going to go in the centre of each junction. Some of them I did have to put interfacing on the back just to make sure those colours would really pop. Moving on to cutting those 7.5 inch squares. Now some of my fabric was in fat quarters, some of it was in yardage, but I treated it all the same. I started by cutting a long rectangle and then working from there, breaking it down into squares. I didn't trust my brain at all at this time, so you might see that I just count and count and count, tapping my finger each time along the squares on my mat to make sure that I'm getting those squares the right dimension. I really didn't want to waste any fabric by cutting the wrong sizes. After cutting, I stored them in piles of 6 so I could easily keep track of how many I had done. I've just realised I've messed up. But it's a good mess up. There's not 56 squares. I didn't need 56 squares. I needed 48 squares. 6 times 8, not 6 times 7. Why did I think I need 6 times 7? So now I've got 8 extra squares that I've got. So, yeah, I'm going to mess around with the layout a bit more and see if I can include some of these. But I don't know, I mean, the ones that I've got down here, I really, really like. So maybe I don't need these, or maybe I can keep these for another project, but messed up. I can't do basic multiplication. Whoops! I'm trying really hard not to overthink this, but like part of me is like, should the eggs even be here? But then I already cut an egg circle, but then I could cut a circle out of this blue instead, which I really like. I just don't know if it's working. But I think I'm going to go ahead with how I have it now, because it's just supposed to be a quick and easy quilt, and I'm overthinking it far too much. So I'm going to take a photo of this to have as my reference, and then I'm going to start stacking things up for chain piecing. That's what I'm going to do. Yes, this is final layout. Do not overthink. Go with your gut. Chain piecing is the best way to quickly get a quilt sewn together. Just make sure that you take a photo of your layout before you stack everything up. I used a clip to mark where the seam would be, and as I collected my squares, I made sure to put right sides together for each pair. And then it was simply a case of working through them piece by piece with a 1/4 inch seam. Got some interesting snafu going here, where my top thread has jumped out of its casing and somehow turned into this strange little tangled mess. This has never happened before. When this first piecing was done, I snipped the threads, keeping them together in groups of 3. So I've got my first row here, and I am going to just sew this row together. And the first one is going to be this pale blue. So our 1/4 inch seam, and then back on the same row again. So unicorn to unicorn. And that's my first row of the quilt done. I'll just put that on the bed and get on with the rest of them. Once all your strips are sewn together like this, you can then press them. It's time to press them. So you can either press your seams open or to one side. I think I'm going to press them to one side using Karen Brown's really good pressing method. You should definitely watch Karen's video on pressing, but the gist of it is you press the seam to set it, you finger press to open it up, and then you press it again. The quilt I'd made before this one was a queen size quilt, and it was really difficult to quilt on my machine with the whole quilt sandwich, so I decided to try and do this as a quilt as you go method. I thought if I made up strips and then pinned them directly onto the batting and then sewed over the strips onto the batting, it would be easier than waiting until the quilt was fully assembled and quilting it all in one go. So it wasn't quite a traditional quilt as you go method where you do it block by block, and instead I was working row by row. Here you can see I'm pinning those rows down onto my piece of polyester fleece that was serving as my batting. after you've secured at the top with a line of stitching, we're then going to just go along and sew down each of these lines. You can either do stitch in the ditch, so trying to match up on the line itself, or you can offset either side or both sides if you want to. I'm trying to take a done rather than perfect stance with this quilt because I want it to be finished. I don't have a lot of time, but I am going to have to unpick this row because look at that, that's awful. This is a trouble. I have a tiny table. I don't have enough space, and so everything drags around when I'm trying to quilt. I'm so jealous of all you people with your huge sewing tables. I'm moving to Tokyo where I'm going to have even less space. What am I going to do then? And it's a good idea to sew down this edge too here so you don't have this flapping about. So on each of your intersections and also at the end. And you can do double if you want. If you want to sew either side of the seam, you can do that. And I can't be bothered, but you could do that if you wanted to. Okay. Right. Why is that so much longer? Okay, start with your center seam. Plop it down. And pin in place. I pressed my seams in opposite directions, so they should nest nicely. Just gonna match my seams up as best I can. Oh dear. So once we're all pinned in place like this, we're just gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam down this side, and then we're gonna flip second row over and press it into place. I am now going to do the same as I did up here, so quilt down these lines here. I think I might switch across and do it the other side. I mean, my points are not lining up. This is very sloppy quilt work. That's what I get for trying a new technique. And I think also, once I've gone down, I want to do a diagonal line going across here and across here, just to give it a bit more visual impact in the quilting and to help keep everything in place. That's pretty much the technique. You just keep going with the next row and the next row and the next. I'm currently pinning in place the penultimate row, so the second to last row, and I'm realising that this fleece seems to be narrowing down towards the end. I'm getting a lot of overhang actually on both sides. So I'm not sure entirely what's happened there. I guess the fleece wasn't square. It wasn't actually 42 inches all the way across. So at the top, I've got extra. You can see that's the top corner there. I've got extra fleece. And at the bottom, I'm not going to. So it's going to be a slightly trapezoid shaped quilt. We've just finished sewing the last row in place, including down all of the seams. And now the last step before I trim everything up, I'm just going to sew on this bottom edge here to secure it to the batting. And as you can see, I've got a surplus here of about 1 to 2 inches. I think the polyester fleece was totally out of whack. You're wondering what that noise is? It's just my child trying to kill himself in the background. Quilt top is pretty much done. I just need to trim things down. And in terms of backing fabric, I've got one in mind that I've had for ages. This here is a bed sheet from a house I used to live in Wales. It's vintage, I would guess about 1980s, maybe 1990s. I don't know, it's kind of got the same vibe going on as the rest of the quilt. Some nice girly pastels. For trimming, I laid the quilt out in the living room so I had a nice flat surface to work on. I'm not great at cutting things down that are bigger than my mat using a rotary cutter, so I just marked the line with my quilting ruler and then used scissors to cut it down. The plan now is to sew all the way around this edge, except for the bottom, leaving a gap down there, just kind of like a duvet cover. So this is right sides together. But lift this up. Got my background fabric there, quilt's there, right sides together, gap at the bottom. I'm just going to sew all the way around the edge. After sewing, you just reach in through the gap, grab the bottom corners and turn the whole quilt right side out. And you should have your beautiful quilt top and your backing fabric visible. Then all you have to do is sew up the gap that you left at the bottom. I did want to do these big X's across, but I think because I don't have a walking foot, it's just going to bunch things up. So the back at the moment is floating, but when I put the circles on, the circles will hold it in place. Part of me really wants to hand quilt it, but I don't have the time and I've got a wrist injury, so I think that's a very bad idea. In the end, I did compromise and do a little bit of hand stitching. I made these large cross stitches at some of the junctions to hold all the layers together. To make the quilt even more personal, I decided that it needed the recipient's initial on there inside one of the circles. So I cut that out of some satin that had been stiffened with interfacing, and then simply did a tight zigzag stitch all the way around to applique it on and keep it in place. And then it was time for our feature circles. So I'm just using Odif spray adhesive here to hold them in place before they get appliqued on. And to make my life easier, I used a free motion quilting foot and lowered my feed dogs so I could work in a smooth circle motion rather than having to rotate the quilt round and around each time.
This is so badly done. Never mind.
Honestly, this might be some of the sloppiest work I've done in a while, but it is done. So my brain does still work and I can still make quilts, which is good. All I need to do now is make a label for it, but I'm not going to do that today. And for one final finishing touch, I added in 2 big loops of ribbon at the top corners of the quilt, just to make it easier to hang on the wall or even to be carried around or worn as a cape. And that was it. I was done. While it's far from perfect, I'm really happy with how this quilt turned out. It's so easy, especially when we have a bit of experience, to just get caught up in the nitty-gritty and the perfectionist angles of making something, and forget that actually when we have skills we can just bash things out in a few days. There's no such thing as the quilt police, as a lot of quilters will tell you, but sometimes we have to kill that quilt policeman in our own head and give ourselves permission to make a free and happy project. I hope you enjoyed this one. See you next time. Bye!